Sheriff Lou Tomio, and I'm the second command here at the Seminole County Sheriff's Office. I would like to officially welcome all of you here today and those of you who are joining us online. As you know, we still are challenged with unique times with the pandemic of COVID, and unfortunately, we've had to modify how we do things, but we're glad to be here today and conducting this ceremony. So, welcome all of you. Before we get started, I'd like to do a couple of quick introductions. To the right of the sheriff is Captain Keisha Howard. To the right of her is our Chief of Corrections, Dr. Laura Bernard. Chief of Staff, Brian Meyer, is with us today. And the two most important people for you in the room are your coordinators, Sergeant Kristen Bates and Sergeant Corey Kelly. Especially thank you, both of you, for what you're doing every day, for not only these folks, but all of our new folks who come in on a daily basis. So thank you for what you do. Again, welcome, and at this time, I'd like to present Sheriff Lehman, who will come up and provide you with some words and then your oath of office.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's you can loosen up just a little bit as I kind of talk about kind of a little bit of the history of what we have going on. It's always like so tense in here. It seems like even in like a COVID environment, I think it's even more tense because you don't have children that are crying in the background and family members that are taking photos, and it just seems to be very, very formal, which actually it is a very, very formal process. But you know, I think it's important that we know a little bit about our history to know what today's process actually represents. And you know, I was talking to a group of people earlier today, and I said, you'd be surprised that the art of deputizing people and the service of a sheriff dates back many, many years. When I say many, many years, even back to the Magna Carta, where the responsibilities associated with the office of sheriff today was mentioned 8 times in the Magna Carta. When you look at the history here in the United States, you'll find that since the 1600s, sheriffs have existed in one form or another and have kind of now expanded over 3,000 of us across the country. But it actually started back in England, where kings would have rule over many areas of the country of England. They would actually have a king ruling within each shire. Shire was a term used as a forerunner to our modern-day counties, what we have today. So the kings would have rule over a shire, and as long as people have cohabitated together, there's always been those individuals that have caused problems that needed to be attended to by law enforcement officers or correctional officers or correctional deputies in our space here. But back then, the king would have to find a right-hand person, a right-hand man, as it were, during the time, to keep the peace, maintain control, summons other people to work in the king's behalf, and to make sure that trials are conducted and even taxes collected, as it were, at the time. The person that the king found to do that was titled reeve. And reeve is a word that really is used, or was used at the time, to describe guardian. So the reeve of the shire became the shire reeve in the 1600s in the Newport News area of common day Virginia, and then ultimately became the sheriff as we know it today. The sheriff here in Seminole County has 4 fundamental responsibilities. It's a large workforce, as you know, but the 4 responsibilities are: 1, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county. And the reason why the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county is because the power of the sheriff comes from the people and supported by our Constitution. Every other law enforcement official in the country is hired and works for at least one other person, some multiple people. But if you think about the director of any federal agency, whether it's FBI or CIA, they work for the president, sometimes embraced and supported by Senate confirmation. A state law enforcement head works for the governor and majority of the governor's cabinet. A police chief either works for a strong mayor or a city manager or city commissioners. The office of sheriff has always been an office that belongs directly to the people. And every 4 years, the people get to say who their sheriff is and what our priorities are. So that's the number one thing, is the chief law enforcement officer of the county, based upon the uniqueness of the power coming from the people and the Constitution. The second area of responsibility here in Seminole County, which in the 109-year existence has always occurred based upon our wonderful and harmonious working relationship with our Board of County Commissioners, is the sheriff is the chief correctional officer of the county. And what you'll find is very rarely will you ever hear me using the word jail. And I know in our line of work, it's so easy to let jail and all of that roll off your tongue, but I typically rarely use that term. And the reason why I don't use that term is I would rather talk about the behavior that I feel is reflective of what we do on the inside, and that is correction. Correcting and believing in our hearts that during the time that somebody's incarcerated, we can make them and their families a little bit better than what they were coming in. Not only is that the human thing to do, there's an expectation for the law-abiding community that if you arrest somebody and incarcerate somebody who lives down the street from me, before you release them back into our neighborhood, please do all that you can to make sure that whatever was wrong in the first place is now corrected. And I think that you'll find and know that Dr. Bedard, Captain Howard, and their entire team works very, very hard to recognize our role in challenging the basic assumptions of traditional law enforcement. And we are on the cutting edge of doing that. The second area of responsibility of the sheriff is to be the chief correctional officer of the county. The third area of responsibility, again, a less known area that you will work directly with as members of our Department of Corrections, we always do, is the sheriff is responsible to be the chief administrative and executive officer of the circuit and county courts. That's a mouthful. What that means is the sheriff is charged with the responsibility to provide safety and security to the entire judiciary. Every single courtroom, every court proceeding, the law requires that the sheriff be present in every one of those proceedings. In addition to that, the sheriff is also the person that is charged with carrying out any civil direction that comes from the courts, whether it's eviction, risk protection order, replevin, child support, alimony, whatever it is, those documents, those legal documents are always directed to the sheriff to carry out certain responsibilities. And of course, with that role, we also not only provide security to our judges and our court facilities, but we also provide security to our county buildings, whether it's our county services building down at the lakefront in Sanford, or the 5 Points complex that we have right here in the heart of our operations, the Sheriff's Office main building, which we call Building 100. So that's responsibility of the sheriff. That's the third responsibility. Fourth responsibility, and kind of wrapping out those four top things, is the sheriff is charged by the Constitution to be the conservator of the peace. And although we've got great and wonderful working relationships with all of our municipalities, all 7 municipalities and the police departments that are associated with that, and the 8th police department being the airport police, in the end of the day, it is the sheriff's responsibility to ensure that control is maintained within a particular county. In the event that a city said, hey, we're not in the policing business anymore, we want to kind of move away from that, it would be the sheriff's constitutional responsibility to pick up primary services within those areas. Again, that would never happen. We've got such wonderful law enforcement partners, and I've got a great friend in each one of our police chiefs in the county. The sheriff is ultimately responsible for what occurs inside a county. Now, why the history lesson? The history lesson is given because the law does not differentiate between the power that is invested with the sheriff themselves, and in the 109-year history, I'm the 10th person to serve as sheriff. Not a whole lot of sheriffs, only 10 of us in the entire history of our county. but the law does not differentiate what I do myself personally and what I do through an alter ego proxy that this ceremony represents. This ceremony quite literally represents, whether it's with sworn folks or detention folks, me transitioning the power that is invested in me by the U.S. Constitution and the state Constitution to the law enforcement practitioners that will act in my stead. And you know, we're an agency that typically doesn't like to use the word my and I very often because it's we and us. But this ceremony quite literally makes you my alter ego to fulfill some of those responsibilities. And I think that I worked here many years before I really recognized the significance of that. You will be acting as the sheriff in your professional capacity of doing what you do day in and day out. So with that, we're going to move to the swearing in ceremony. And I know that your family members are watching virtually, all of you, as you're going to do a remarkable task of pinning yourself with your own badge, or what we like to call in the business getting ready for work in the morning, and take this very symbolic oath of office. So if you would, please stand. And then what you're going to do is you're going to raise your right hand, and when I say state your name, you're going to start stating your name here and work all the way down, moving to the back, and then all the way across the back. But you'll state your name individually, one at a time, and then we will move forward with the rest of the oath. Okay? I,
Taylor Hexler,
Thomas Seminole, Darius Chapel,
Frederick Barron, Miranda Barnes, A.B. Clark,
Wilson Munoz,
Stephanie Solano,
Jonathan Long,
Liza Young,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government
the Constitution and government
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Florida,
and the state of Florida,
that I will enforce the laws
that I will enforce the laws
of the state of Florida
of the state of Florida
specific to my assignment,
specific to my assignment,
that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
carry out the duties
carry out the duties
of Seminole County Sheriff's Office,
of Seminole County Sheriff's Office,
Detention Deputy,
detention deputy,
for which I am about to enter,
for which I am about to enter.
so help me God.
So help me God.
This time I'll ask you that you take your badge, you put your hands down, you take your badge out of your pocket or if it's in your hand, and to the best of your ability, just go ahead and get that on there and pin yourself. There's a hole at the top and a hole at the bottom, and if you need any assistance, we'll have somebody that's properly masked to much for your service. Again, we're going to offer some more comments, but because we don't want to have a whole lot of people kind of waiting through all of that stuff, we're going to kind of get a group photo together as people are kind of watching online. And Sergeant Kelty, you want to get them assembled for the photo?
What about yourself? Let's get a